Deeply in debt, Rodney gets involved with an underground fighting ring.
How'd you need the money?
You gotta be a good boy and take a dive. I'm gonna have to teach you a lesson.
When he disappears, his brother Russell decides to track him down.
We're gonna get one shot at this guy. You ready for this?
Russell must decide to take revenge or play by the rules in Out of the Furnace.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
I'm Liz.
And I'm Sean. Next up is Out of the Furnace, starring Christian Bale and Woody Harrelson. We've all just seen it. Rachel, what do you think of Out of the Furnace?
It's clear, it's simple, there aren't any cheats or tricks, and I think the performances are strong.
We have technical prowess. We have a director who has a strict command of tone. I mean, the first half of the film was as tense as a horror film.
And by the way, I love the first half of the film.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great. And then the second half of the film, things unraveled as I feel like the director intended them to. But you don't go into this and leave and think, well, woohoo,
yeah.
Great time.
Right,
with
the drive-in theater, and I wonder if he's trying to echo the sentiments of some of those films, which were very visceral and violent and didn't necessarily make you feel very good, which this doesn't. But it did work for me because of mainly the cast and the performances. Scott Cooper, the director who made Crazy Heart, does know what he's doing and does handle this material very well.
So what we have is the first half of the film, we set up Christian Bale's character of Russ Baze as a really good man, or a man trying his best to be a good man in spite of all these extenuating circumstances. And it makes you feel for the character. And the script continues along that line until it gets to the point where it's a little sadistic. And it throws our main character that we've grown to love so much into all these horrible situations. It's purposefully sadistic.
So I really enjoyed the first part of this film, but then you get into some things like some very heavy-handed metaphors. Hunting metaphors that play out for a very long time, and you know what's going to happen. And actually, there are some twists to it still, but I just feel like some of these moments get so highlighted that I'm like, okay, you're losing the subtlety that you had in the first half.
And I wasn't necessarily always sure why characters were doing what they were doing at any given time. It does manage to find itself. It does manage to work, despite the fact that it's so unapologetically grim. I thought it should have been called Stuck in the Furnace and not Out of the Furnace.
Burning in the furnace.
Burning in the furnace.
I mean, actually, some people walked out while I was watching this. It was like, and not because it was bad, but just because, it's one horrible thing after the next, and it doesn't let up.
Oh, I think I'm running. I'm gonna run. I'm running.
Get away! Go!
Christian Bale was just amazing. He's so subtle, he's so underplayed. He has love, and I think that's the most important thing. He has love for his girlfriend, he has love for his brother, he has love for his father, and that's what keeps you really connected to that character. That's what breaks your heart.
He's got lots of love for Woody Harrelson, too, in this movie.
Woody Harrelson.
Woody
He's
Harrelson?
the most terrifying person I've ever seen on screen. And I was very surprised at how effective of a villain he was, because he had all the traits of your stereotypical villain. I mean, he's walking down the street with a lollipop. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Every time he came on the screen, I got really nervous.
Every time he was up there, it was just like I wanted to punch him, and also I was like...
Your mom teach you to barge in like that? You got a problem with me? I got a problem with everybody.
I enjoyed more so the subtle performances, not so much the lead performances. Zoe Saldana, as you mentioned, I think that she gives her best performance to date.
Wonderful.
And Forrest Whitaker, it's not a terribly flashy performance, but this is Forrest Whitaker as I've never really seen him before. He's not going to get a whole lot of accolades for this performance because it's a small role, but I was like, I wouldn't have even thought that was Forrest Whitaker necessarily.
The ending of this film is set up in a certain way where you have expectations that aren't necessarily met. I would say the majority of audiences will be surprised by the ending. And it felt like Scott Cooper was doing that because he could and because he wanted to create some sort of visceral reaction from the audience.
It does show Scott Cooper's talent. He seems to know exactly where to put the camera for maximum impact. And even though I didn't necessarily fall in love with this movie, I am curious to see what Scott Cooper does next.
For great performances from Christian Bale and Zoe Saldana, but a kind of heavy-handed third act, I give this movie a stream it.
Out of the Furnace keeps all the hope firmly in the fire, but the great performances make it worth the recommendation if you're willing to stomach it. See it.
Out of the Furnace takes you to a very dark place. It's not an enjoyable film, but it is an achievement in storytelling. So I say, see it.
Our votes add up to 2.5 tickets, which is a see it for Out of the Furnace. To the furnace!
Cheers.
Do not take your children to this movie. It fuels the furnace.
But then we go out of the furnace and into the fire.